Alright class, we're going to talk about the unit circle some more today. So right in front of you right now, you're supposed to draw your own unit circle. What I really did was just draw quadrant 1 of the unit circle. So if you notice, if you want to pause the screen right now, I'm going to do that a couple times in this video just to save some time. Pause the screen and write this down. But what's important to note is that the 30, 45, 60 reference correspond to pi over 6, pi over 4, and pi over 3 with radians. So whenever you see something with pi over 6, you know it's a 30-degree reference, which is the root 3 over 2, 1/2. It's always going to be that for that reference. You just have to remember what quadrant you're in for the signs. So if you're in the second quadrant, x now becomes negative. Third quadrant, they're both negative, and the fourth quadrant, then the y is negative. And tangent, of course, is y over x. So again, you should have paused and written this down. I'm going to move on. Reciprocal functions. If you remember, we had 3 other functions we talked about. We had secant, which is just flipping or 1 over cosine. It's the reciprocal of cosine. We had cosecant, which is just the reciprocal of sine. And then, of course, we had cotangent, which is just the reciprocal of tangent. Okay, so this is we're going to evaluate some of these. So again, we kind of talked about this before. So there's your 3 reciprocals. Sine of 7 pi over 4. Now again, to do this without converting, 7/4 is close to 2, which is 2 pi. Remember, is here. This is 1 pi. 7/4 is close to 2, but not quite 2. So we're in this quadrant. And then because it's a pi over 4, that's the same thing as a 45 degree. So right away, I know that my things are root 2 over 2's. But I have to decide which one's negative here. Well, the y is negative because I moved down. The x is positive because I moved to the right to get to this point here. Right and then down. And I'm asking for sine, which is y, so my answer is negative root 2 over 2. Okay, so that's kind of what you have to look at when you do these. 2/3 is closer to 1 than 0, but it's not quite 1. So it's right here somewhere. And again, a pi over 3 means 60 degrees. And at a 60-degree reference, the x is shorter than the y. And again, you're going to just have to, that's the thing you're going to have to do. You can do the hand trick to figure that out. You can do whatever you need to do, but that's what you have to start thinking about. Again, in this one, the x is negative because we moved left, but then up, so the y is positive. I'm asking for x, so the answer is negative 1/2. Now, this one here, we have cosecant. Don't worry about the cosecant. Just do everything you normally do. 7/6 is a little bit more than 1. So it's over here. A pi over 6 is 30 degrees. 30 degrees means that the x is bigger, the y is shorter. We're in quadrant 3 though, so they're both negative. Now cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So since sine is negative 1/2, cosecant, you just flip it. So my answer to the problem is actually negative 2. Okay? So you have to just do what you were normally doing, get the sign, the thing that corresponds to the reciprocal function, and we go with that. And then you just flip it basically. So, alright, tangent's a little trickier. 4/3 is a little more than 1. And then this is a 60. We already did a 60 reference. 60 was when x is shorter, y is longer. They're both negative here. So remember, tangent is when you divide y over x. So when you divide y over x, you just get root 3. The 2's cancel, the negatives cancel. For these ones, all you have to do is the same thing, except for you just have 2 pieces. So figure out what sine of pi over 4 is. Well, pi over 4 is 45. Hopefully, and since these are both quadrant 1, they're going to be positive. 45 is great because you already know it's root 2 over 2. This one you're going to have to figure out. This is our, again, a 1/6 of a pi is 30 degrees, which, if you remember, is longer in the x, shorter in the y. So I want the x one, so I want this. So my answer is that. You can rewrite it as this if you want. I would probably take either. Now this one's a little trickier. Pi over 2. that is not one of the ones we've been talking about. But if you remember, what is half of a pi? Well, if pi is 180, half of a pi is up here when you're at 90 degrees. So I'm at the point 0, 1 here. Now if you think about this, tangent is y over x, so 1 over 0, which is undefined. However, we are doing cotangent. So if I flip 1 over 0, I get 0 over 1 or 0. So when you have tangents undefined, cotangent 0. You just got to remember that. Cosecant, pi over 6 is over here. That's the 30. Again, we're back at 3 over 2 and 1/2. Cosecant goes with sine. Remember, it's always the opposite letter. So like cosecant goes with the S, secant goes with the C for cosine. So I want sine. Sine is 1/2. So I flip it and it becomes plus 2. So my answer is 2. Okay, so we're going to do a little more on this. This is just writing all 6 trig functions. Again, I'm going to want you to pause the screen and write these all down for numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think on your sheet it actually says A, B, C, and D. So take a second and pause the screen and write all this down. And then I'm going to keep going. We do not use the calculator. So it says find the exact values of the 6. So basically, once you figure out your point, you can answer these. So sine of 90, or 90 is up here at 0, 1. So sine is the y, so right away we're going to say that's 1. Cosine's the x, that's 0. Tangent is 1 over 0, which is undefined. So you have to write undefined. Cosecant, I wrote this a certain way because they're next to each other. If you flip a 1, you get 0. Sorry, I don't know why I just said that. You get a 1. If you flip a 0, we talked about that. The secant would be undefined. You can't flip a 0. And then if you flip an undefined, you're back to 0. And actually, I wrote this wrong. This should just be cotangent. You get 0 for cotangent of 90. So you should have 1, 0 undefined, 1 undefined, and then 0. Now number 2, again, you should have paused the screen to write all these down, so you could rewind and do that. Number 2, 510. The problem with 510 is it's not within the first 360. However, if you remove a full circle from this, you get down to 150. So you can look at where 150 is, right here, which is a 30-degree reference. And again, we know that because it takes 30 more degrees to get to the 180. So we have this point. I like to write my point down, and then which one's negative? The x is negative. So now once you have the point, this is actually really quick. Sine is the y of the point. Cosine is the x of the point. Tangent, you divide y over x. In this case, the 2's cancel, and it'll be negative 1 over root 3 when you divide these. This one's flipped. This one's flipped. This one's flipped. And then you're done. You do not need to rationalize. Notice how tangent and secant I did not rationalize. You do not need to do that. If you want to, you can. It's allowed. I just don't need you to. Please, again, pause and write this down if you haven't. I know it's a lot of writing, but once you have it written down, it'll go quickly. Make my video shorter. So now we're doing radians. Again, we did a bunch of these on the front page. 7 pi over 6. Just a little more than 6/6, or a little more than 1. So we're here, and you have to know that 1/6 of a pi is 30 degrees. So on a 30-degree reference, the x is bigger, the y is smaller, and they're both negative. So once I have my point again, and if you guys want to pause the video at any time and try these before I say the answer, please do. Please do. Sine is negative 1/2 then, because that's your y. Cosine's negative root 3 over 2. And this actually goes right with the answers for number 2, except for the signs are a little different. When you divide this, you get positive 1 root 3. You get negative 2 over root 3. And then this is positive root 3. So it just changed the sign from the one we did in, I guess it'd be letter B for you guys. Finally, we have 5 pi over 3. 5 pi over 3 is almost 2. 5/3 is 1.7, but it's not quite 2. So we're in quadrant 4, and again, this means a 60-degree reference. So that's the opposite of what we just did with the 30-degree reference. The y is bigger this time. X is positive because we move right to get there, and then down. So right down is negative for y. So that should be your new coordinate we're using, and now we just plug in the values. So sine is the y. Remember, this only works when we're on the unit circle. Tomorrow we're going to do points that are off the unit circle. You have to find the hypotenuse then. The hypotenuse is always 1, so it doesn't matter. When you divide these, y over x, you get negative root 3. The 2's cancel, you're left with that. We flip that, we flip that, we flip that. And then we're done. Okay, so that is how you do radians and work more with the unit circle. A lot of this should have been a review. Hopefully this wasn't too bad. If you are struggling, please come in for help. Please, please, please. Alright, I will see you guys on the next one.